In the spring of 2013, what seemed to be a straightforward emergency call-out for 2 police officers would turn out to be anything but. Not only would this experience chill them to the core, it would have them questioning their own reality for years afterwards, as they tried to solve the riddle that was the CrossWade Interlopers.
For a parking problem.
We have a possible break-in at CrossWade Enterprises facility. The alarm has gone off several times, and it looks like PRs are picking up heat signatures inside.
What exactly is CrossWade?
Some research lab, something.
Damn. Bloody darkness.
The pitch of the engine climbed higher as the vehicle picked up speed, racing along dark country roads that would have been as black as pitch if not for the high beams illuminating the trees and hedgerows around them.
Should we hit the siren?
No need.
Yeah.
The roads were empty, and there wasn't another vehicle for miles around. It was 2:21 AM on the 31st of March 2013, and James and his on-duty partner, Chris Braddock, who was driving, had just received a call from the CCR, or Contact and Control Room, about a possible break-in at a remote facility out in the countryside. They were in a rural area on the outskirts of Whitehaven, a town situated in the Copeland district of Cumbria, England, about 3 miles from their intended destination.
Where is that place? You're sure we are heading to the right direction?
Well, the GPS says it's there.
They would be on scene within minutes. The facility they were heading towards was owned by CrossWade Enterprises and was known locally as something of an oddity. Its modern architecture stood out like a sore thumb against the otherwise beautiful and unspoiled English countryside that surrounded it. The amount of technology it boasted was also at odds with its rural setting. A highly advanced security framework, remote access and lighting control, and the latest building management systems and head-end software suites, all housed within what is otherwise known in the industry as a smart building. Its quiet and remote location was the last place you would expect to see such a thing. They parked across the road and sat in silence for a moment, observant, waiting for any kind of movement or indication of criminal activity.
This is the place?
Haviland to CCR, we are 1023, copy.
I don't see anything.
Wait, did you see that?
No. What
I
exactly?
think I saw a flashlight or something.
Don't know. Didn't see it.
Over the next few minutes, nothing at all happened. They could hear the muffled sound of wind blowing around the exterior of the vehicle and the leaves rustling in the breeze, which was somehow both peaceful and slightly unsettling all at the same time. But there was no sign of anything untoward. However, Their attention was soon drawn to the lobby when he and Chris both witnessed the light flicker on and illuminate the space inside. Suddenly, the automatic doors at the front of the building opened and shut on their own before the alarm started to sound, piercing the air with a high-pitched undulating screech. Although startled, both men believed that they had the measure of the situation, that the access system was malfunctioning, and that the opening and closing doors was breaking the live circuit and setting off the alarm.
Haviland to sender. ATT. The situation seems UK. The system might be malfunctioning. Asking for 1044.
Hey!
But just as they were about to radio back to the CCR, a figure emerged from the front entrance, then appeared to look over towards their police car, before jogging off to the right, around to the rear of the building. Just seconds later, another figure emerged, but headed round to the left instead. In normal circumstances, James and Chris would have jumped out of their vehicle and scrambled after the two men, but something had given them pause. Although the figures had been distant and only silhouettes cast against the light coming from the lobby, there was no mistaking what they were. They could tell by the shapes of the caps and bulky stab vests that these two figures had, in fact, been police officers.
Who else was sent there?
Only us. I mean, what is going on here?
I don't see any other Bobby cars here.
Haviland to CCR. 1043. Are there any 1086 dispatched to our location? Copy.
Negative.
Wait, are there any security guards?
I don't know. Look at this place. Who would want to stay here all night?
Then who's inside?
Something was obviously not quite right with this picture, and whilst the situation was becoming confusing, things were about to turn extremely weird. Just as James finished using the radio, both figures walked back around to the front of the building and stood outside the entrance looking confused. The taller one of the two appeared to kick a pebble on the ground.
I think I know these folks.
Suddenly, both figures looked over towards the police car and began to run towards it. Chris and James stepped out of their vehicle, ready to greet them. But when they looked up, the security guards or police officers, or whatever they were, had disappeared. All that stood before Chris and James was the dark CrossWade building. Both police officers looked left and right. They were in a wide open car park. There was nowhere else these two other men could have gone. They had simply vanished into thin air. They looked at each other in stunned silence, neither man willing to speak first about what they had just witnessed. After their initial shock had subsided, James was the first to say something.
Okay, mate. I think then we need to go and see what the hell is going on in there.
Alright, but let's keep our guard up.
They noticed, as they approached the front entrance, that it was completely locked down. They had to relay a request to the facilities manager in order to gain access.
Hello, this is Officer Haviland. We're standing outside the facility. Could you please unlock the main entrance for us so that we can access?
As they entered the lobby, Chris went up the flight of stairs to the first floor.
This place is a bloody maze. I don't know how, but I have a disturbing feeling. I mean, you usually feel like this in the dark, but I don't know.
Yeah, it
Feels like something is going to jump on us out of nowhere.
Whilst James remained on the ground floor and began checking through the dark offices as the lighting system had still not activated. He found nothing out of the ordinary, but couldn't help feeling a little spooked about what had happened only moments before. As he was walking back towards the lobby, he noticed the light flicker on. Then he heard the hiss of the automatic doors as they opened and closed, before the silence was suddenly shattered once again by the sound of the alarm. He picked up the pace and noticed Chris coming down the stairs as he exited the building, fully believing that an intruder had just slipped past them. He looked over towards their vehicle and quickly scanned the car park for anyone running away, but there was no one there. His instincts told him to run around to the left of the building as it was the quickest way for someone to get out of sight. However, as he made his way around to the rear, he was confronted with a refuse area, which was surrounded by high brick walls. He checked the bins inside and out, and even tried to scale the wall itself, but it was just too high. There was no chance someone could have escaped this way. Returning to the front of the building, he noticed Chris walking back from the other side, and they met up in front of the entrance. Not for the first time that night, they were completely baffled by what had just happened, and contemplated radioing back to the CCR.
This situation is starting to make me sick.
Avalanche to CCR. I confirm the situation as a malfunction of the security system. Requesting 1044 copy.
They were reluctant to put it all down to a false alarm, as they knew they had witnessed two other people on the scene, although they would have had trouble in explaining in their reports exactly who those people were, or indeed, where they had gone. It was only when Chris casually kicked a pebble on the ground in front of the building, whilst discussing their options, that the reality of the situation came crashing down. But it couldn't be. Surely. They looked back towards their vehicle, and sure enough, they saw two faces staring out at them from behind the windscreen. The dash lights were reflecting off their skin, and they knew in that instant that those two faces were their own. They ran back towards their car and saw the doors open, but no one stepped out. The two men inside had vanished. James has spent the last 4 years pondering on exactly what happened in the early hours of that morning. Before this, he had never experienced anything he would describe as paranormal or supernatural. He was an ardent skeptic, and in most cases still is, but he has no rational explanation for what occurred. He has researched online and has spoken to many so-called experts, but usually finds that they have more questions than they do answers. Neither he nor Chris are certain what they experienced, whether they saw their own doppelgangers, or whether it was a glitch in reality, where the universe slipped time and allowed them a brief glimpse into their own futures, or maybe that they even both temporarily lost their minds. They are well aware of how unbelievable this sounds, and for this reason, they did not write it up in any of their reports. Names and details have had to be changed in order for us to share this story with you. There is no such company as CrossWade Enterprises, but somewhere out in the wilds of Cumbria, there is a building which stands alone and in stark contrast to its surroundings. A building which sends a very real chill up the spines of at least 2 police officers whenever they think back on the events of that early morning, all those years ago.
Need one. One run. 521. Start me a card for a parking problem. And 423. Yes, that's 4. I'll get a 28 from one truck when you're ready. Go ahead. From one truck, Boy Lincoln X-ray 985 should come back up past the building.